the drive, goes inside the floor. Scoops it up. Booker brings the boom.
What is up, everyone? We are bringing the boom. We're breaking down a big NBA slate tonight, AP. Not your normal NBA slate as well. Starting at 7:30 Eastern with, as you said on Twitter, 5 games starting at 10 o'clock or later. So should be a marathon of a night. I'm sure we'll be running around with the kids and everything. But AP, how was your weekend, and how are you feeling about this NBA slate?
Yeah, feeling really good. I'm kind of in shambles over here. Like my whole computer reset. It like messed up all my settings. I got logged out of StreamYard, and I was the reason we were a couple minutes late, unfortunately. But like man, go. You know, you have those little settings on the back end, like that make a difference, and it's all different. Like, do you usually mirror? I think that's better. I can't remember what I always do. You know what I'm talking about? Like that or like that?
What do you mean?
All right. Just with like, you don't mess with your settings in StreamYard?
I mean, they're the same, so I don't really have to worry too much about them, I would say.
Well, I haven't had to worry about it for like a couple of years now. I've like never been locked out. It's crazy. I think we're good to go though.
All right, yeah, I got the night mode on. I know that, so that's that. Were you in the light mode or dark mode when you opened up StreamYard?
So when I opened up StreamYard, it was like zoomed in on my face, and it was like the quality was like the all shitty quality or whatever. But I think we're good to go now.
All right, well, we're good to go. We have a lot to talk about. This is there is no Big T today. I will say this: Big T is very busy with the college basketball streets, so he'll be breaking all that down with Steve Boynton. I know they're doing a show tomorrow night. I know Steve, is doing a show tomorrow at like 11 p.m. At least that's what he said in the Discord chat. So he'll be breaking down the brackets. He'll have tons of shows this week. That's why you subscribe to the channel to find out when we go live. And, of course, if you could like it for St. Patty's Day, we would appreciate it. Happy St. Patty's Day to everyone out there that celebrates. And if you're building lineups drunk from the bar on mobile listening to us, we're happy to have you listening. All right, AP, let's dive in. There's a lot to discuss. I'm not going to do a full injury report for you guys because let me tell you, today would be a day.
I would stop you because you got to go game by game. Let me say one thing. The night slate tonight is awesome. I really like it. So, and the contests are good.
Yeah, it's definitely a good little setup. So, again, games starting at 7:30 Eastern, and we have one game kicking it off. It's Miami and the New York Knicks. Not a game I think we're going to absolutely love, right, because of the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat games are not games we typically like to target. We want them to be without players if we are playing Miami Heat guys. Today, who are they missing, right? Not a lot. Mainly missing Jovic and Burks, but that's been for a while. Andrew Wiggins is questionable. If there is no Andrew Wiggins, that does help the usage of Bam Adebayo, even though his price is up. Tyler Hero, whose price is up. But the Knicks, they don't play a lot of defense, right? This is a team that we could definitely target defensively. It makes a lot of sense to go there. On the Knicks side of the ball, we know what's going on, right? We know that they are missing Jalen Brunson, right? He's out till I think end of March, so maybe another week or so. That means we have Karl Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, all guys that get boosts. Prices have increased though, right? OG is not 6K, he's 7K. Mikal Bridges went from around 5.8, 6K to 6.5K. Cat, not a huge boost. He's got up to 10K, but also not an elite matchup, right? Going up against Bam Adebayo. Certainly the usage will be there. And of course, Miles McBride, I know he's someone we've talked about in the Discord, playing 38 minutes in his last 2 games, only 5.5K, but we have to compare. Do we play a Deuce McBride? We have all this other value that's opened up, and also value that is going to open up later on in the night. AP, give me your thoughts though on Miami and New York to kick it off.
Yeah, first before I do, so Angela, what my friend here, Travis, used to do is go through every single injury on the entire slate instead of doing it game by game, we are still going
it
to
wasn't
discuss
instead,
injuries.
you would do it
No. It was. You would
No.
do it the entire slate, and then like no one would be able to like. You would have
No,
to be like
no, I
taking the
would do
best
it.
notes ever.
I would do it at the start, and then I would do it during the games as well. I did it both times because it's that important.
I think what would so like I've been trying to think about our playbook and how to construct it in a way maybe for next year with like how crazy the NBA was or has been this year, and it's only going to get crazier. It really is.
Yeah.
Like how to reconstruct it to really focus in on the key. Like I feel like every slate there's some really key injury news situations, and then there's just like LeBron James questionable. He has to be on the injury report like every single slate. So stuff that you can kind of ignore. But anyways, let's get into to this game. It's interesting. So the lock, we're what 30 minutes later, which I definitely like. A lot of content responsibilities today, so that's going to help me just to make sure that stuff is dialed for the members. But we have these slates, and tonight specifically because we have 5 games starting after 10 Eastern, which is like you don't see too often. And for old people like me, it kind of sucks. I mean, not really. I like to stay up late, so and I'll be watching ball tonight, and I'll be playing the night slate. But the question becomes like, what's the opportunity cost or the benefit, or I guess the opportunity cost of like locking in a player early versus the benefit of waiting for news. If you can wait for news, typically it's going to be more advantageous for you because things have been crazy. Lineup changes, random dudes sitting, that creates different opportunities. So if you're able to monitor things and adjust, obviously it's going to create a nice little benefit for you. And so that's like my one concern with targeting this first game. Now we like the New York Knicks. We like their rotation. Thibs obviously runs a really tight rotation. We have Jalen Brunson out, which has created a really nice role for McBride, Karl Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby, a really nice tight rotation. The Heat, not typically the best of matchups, and you see that in the Vegas total tonight, 209.5. One thing I do like, though, man, I don't know if I'll get there, and I most likely won't, but Karl Anthony Towns last game and what kind of was maybe a better matchup for him against a smaller Warriors team, his usage was back to what we're accustomed to seeing. He took 21 shots. I mean, and he did it all in 29 minutes. So he showed a lot of upside. And at the start of the season, or at least in the first couple of months, anytime Towns was 10K or under 10K, I had a ton of interest. I don't think I'll get there tonight. In multi-entry formats, I would definitely have him in my pool. He's a guy that could nuke and obviously, win the slate for you. But I find myself just moving off of this game. I really want to we just have, it's like one game. Like usually a slate like this is reversed. Usually you have more games starting at the 7 Eastern window and you have like one standalone night game. And so the slate really feels flipped tonight. And I'm really most likely avoiding this game unless like something crazy happens, like Miles McBride got ruled out and he's not even on the injury report or anything like that. So not sure, how you feel about it, but my lean right now is just to avoid this game. We have many other better games that we can target tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, sure, if you want to play like a small percentage of Towns in MME, that's fine, but I wouldn't be prioritizing him at all. I don't think it's beneficial for your lineups. And I'm definitely with you, AP. Like I want to be well under on this game because, like you said, there's a lot of opportunity later on that we will get to and discuss. Let's get to the next game. Philadelphia and Houston, which, I mean, this is definitely an important one, right? So here's the injuries we have right now. On the Philadelphia side of the ball, Adam Bona, Andre Drummond, Paul George, Maxey, Oubre, Lonnie Walker are all out with Yabusele questionable. And then on the Rocket side, we got Tari Eason in, and we have Amen Thompson out. This is obviously really big news. If we look at the Sixers side of the ball and kind of think it through, Quentin Grimes, for one, he's 8.1K AP. Like, he deserves this price tag. If you look at his last 4 games, with these guys out, he's been absolutely dominant. You got Butler as an option, Council. I know Doughton, he's gotten a price hike. Edwards, Hood Scafino, I know the flop black kid. He had a good game the next game after in 23 minutes. You got Alex Reese, O'Shea Brissett's finally in the pool. So, listen, it's kind of similar to the last situations we've had, just we have increased price tags on a lot of these guys, which is worth mentioning on a pretty big slate, especially with news that we are going to be waiting on. On the Houston side of the ball, Şengün's 9.6K. I have not been a huge fan of him at this price. I know he had a big game against Chicago. 56 is fine, but I'm definitely a little hesitant loading up on him at that price tag, especially with if they do really well, I could see them just blow them out, and it doesn't really matter. I'm more excited in the Philadelphia side of the ball. Sure, you can talk, like a Jabari Eason or a Tari Smith maybe, but honestly, I want to just play mainly the Philly side of the ball, but we got to decipher through these price tags, right? Because Jared Butler is not 4.9 anymore, right? He is 6K. These prices are definitely expensive. How are you handling these new price tags on the Philadelphia 76ers AP?
Yeah, honestly, I think this game is another one that, well, at least the Philly side, I might be opposite of you. I think it's a full fade. We saw them play everyone, basically. Everyone that was available got some run. A true 10-man rotation yesterday against the Mavericks. And our boy K. Reed, I don't know if he's watching, but he posted a funny meme after the result of this game. Philly winning 130 over the Dallas Mavericks, 125. And what was, it felt like a G League type of scrub fest. You got minutes from like guys like Chumo, Kiki, Jeff Doughton, O'Shea Brissett. Like, I have no interest in these guys. I do like Ricky Council, but he was held under 30 minutes. If we see a similar rotation, even if they run a 9-man rotation, they can kind of do what the Wizards have been doing, giving these G League type of players extra run off the bench. And it's a tough matchup against Houston. Like, this is just one of the brutal matchups out there. So this is another game that I likely avoid. If Quentin Grimes at 8K beats me against this team, then yeah, it is what it is. I mean, he has been incredible. If it was any other matchup, I would have interest. If it was the Jazz or the Pelicans, for example, I would definitely have interest. But a matchup against the Rockets, I just can't get there. 103 implied team total too for Philly. It's just I think it's going to be gross on their side. I think the Rockets take care of business and have a big game, and it could be one of those situations. I said the same thing. Well, I didn't say it. We didn't have a show yesterday, but I guess in talking to myself yesterday, looking at the Clippers, they were in a similar spot, and I'm like, can these guys, Zubac, Harden, get there, even if it's a blowout? It was a massive blowout, and Zubac was on the winner. Harden put up a monster score. So you could see guys like Jalen Green, Alperen Şengün get there. It's just they're going to have to be highly efficient, and they're going to have to do it in minimal minutes, which does bring some extra risk kind of into the equation. So I'm likely, since we have 10 games to look at and review, and I'm only running a couple lineups tonight, focusing on some of those cues that DraftKings running, I don't think I'm going to take the risk tonight. I think I'm going to just most likely full fade this game.
And I will mention that this is the rotation we're looking at, right? We got 2, 4, 6, 8. We have 9 guys for their rotation. It's Grimes. I think the starting lineup is Grimes, Butler, Council, Yabusele, and then I think it's either a Doughton or an Edwards. Would you agree that's kind of probably the starting 5 there?
Yeah, what they've been doing is you get a little bit of a 3-man backcourt rotation, actually 4-man backcourt rotation with Butler, Grimes, and then Doughton, and then Jalen Hood coming off the bench. So if we had a more secure role for one of those guys, I would have interest. Or if a Grimes or Butler got ruled out, I would have more interest. But I don't think that's the case tonight, so I'm going to avoid.
And here is the ownership on all these guys. Every single player right now I'm seeing on SaberSim over here, everyone's below 5% on the Sixers. So they're definitely, taking in the price hikes for good reason. And then the highest owned guy in the Rockets is Tari Eason at 6.2K. And I will say, if the game does blow out, Tari Eason is someone that might play kind of that mop-up time in the fourth quarter, and he has really huge upside. I had him on a pretty good team the other day. He had almost 50 DK points. He has that in his bag. It's obviously not likely, but he has the ability to break a slate at the price. So definitely
you bring up a good point. A recent example would be the Rockets absolutely dismantling Glock's Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
And we saw kind of what happened. It was Jabari Smith. I mean, Jabari Smith still had a decent role, but they bring in that kind of third unit where Jonathan Williams, Cam Whitmore, Jayshawn Tate, and then it's Jock Lando and Aaron Holiday. I just with the Rockets being fairly conservative, like their starters played all through the third quarter, and then you got the scrubs in. I don't know. I would almost opt more to playing the Şengün, Tyrese, and like you said, and then Jalen Green. So I might actually have a little bit of interest. They did destroy the Mavericks, and it's such a similar situation. And they put up some nice scores. It was Tyrese at 49 DraftKings points, Şengün 43, Jalen Green 49.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing those like qualifiers and stuff, which I've been kind of doing a little bit of those as well, like, I mean, they're just like 1% plays that could definitely like pop off and, kind of help get you there. And like, you're not trying to beat, 1,000 people. You're only trying to beat like 100 people or so. So it's definitely something that's a little intriguing to me. But again, not these two games I don't want to load up on. Let's get the Pistons and Pelicans, which AP, we do have some news that we are waiting on in this game. Messi, Kelly Olynyk, and Zion, they are all questionable. And that's really important news because that's going to shake up the Pelicans a little bit. If you do not have all those guys in, well, there's going to be value, right? Karlo Makovic, he's going to pop up. JRE, maybe he gets a little bit more run. Or Mo Bamba. Some of those guys would definitely get more run there. You could make the case that a Jordan Hawkins or a Jose Alvarado would pop a little bit at 5K. So there's definitely plays here, AP, that I think we have to look into and like, but we need the news. I think that's going to be super important. And then on the Pistons side of the ball, not a lot to like. Yes, there's not going to be a lot of defense being played on the Pelican side. We know that it's probably going to be a higher scoring game. They have a pretty decent total. Their total on Sabre is about 120 for the Pistons, but like, I think the minutes are going to be allocated around between Duren and Harris and Cade Cunningham, Dennis Schroeder. Like all this production is just going to be allocated too much where I'm not excited about this game. This is another one that I don't like the Pistons side that much. And the Pelican side, I need the news to really kind of come up with that. I don't know if someone just said Zion became probable. Maybe that happened when we were on the show, but point I'm getting at, AP, is without this news, it's hard to like make a decision on what to do. Yes, we did just get No, we didn't get Zion news. So I don't know, AP. Talk about it, though, because I think this news is important.
I mean, if you're the Pelicans, you probably want to lose games right now. Let's see, what is it? It's the Wizards and Jazz tied for the worst. Two teams followed by the Hornets and then the Pelicans. So, I mean, if you're them, you likely want to lose games, but you'll see individual performances like we saw last game from a CJ McCollum who went off. Outside of that, he's been pretty dusty. It's so hit or miss. I mean, I would bet on him. Like, unless Zion just takes up so much usage and opportunity. If he got ruled out, obviously it creates a lot of opportunity for these other players. Kelly Olynyk had a nice role. Makovic, I mean, he has a nice role. I just like the Pistons have been a little tricky. So here's how I'm playing this game. If Zion is in, I'm full fading it. Zion's 9,400. We have other better players in that price range. Can he nuke in his 30 minutes? He can. We did see it against the Clippers. It's just he's going to be capped right around that 30. I mean, 32 minutes? Probably the highest outcome. I just still think, like, why are they trying to win games? And the Pistons have been really good. So if anything, I would have far more interest on the Pistons side. Cade Cunningham, definitely a stud that you want to consider. 9,800 point guards have done very well against the Pelicans. I mean, they're obviously not playing good defensive basketball right now, but offensively, they've been good enough at times when Zion is in specifically to stay competitive in these games. So the Jordan Hawkins is kind of interesting, but he's been pretty bad and playing somewhat limited minutes. So I would have interest if a lot of these players got ruled out, even though they're not at that ideal position. I guess if all three got ruled out, I would have to take a look and we'd be considering some of these options. But as it stands right now, not too interested in the Pelicans side. I do have interest, though, in Cade Cunningham. Jalen Duren, someone to keep in your pool. I don't know, like, man, your boy Tobias Harris, he's had some nice starts, and then it's like he does nothing in the second half. So He's definitely more of a floor play, and on a 10-game slate, even at that $5,800 price tag, there's no way I can play your boy Tobias Harris.
He's better on those like 6-game slates where we're just struggling for forwards. I'm not too worried about him on this slate. And the chat was wrong. They said Zaire Williams was the news. So nothing on Zion yet. We will figure that out. We'll break it down if we have to when we get to it. And yeah, another game I want to kind of be under on. Let's get to the next game up. We got the Pacers and the Timberwolves. Definitely a good one to discuss. Big news here, AP, that we got to break down. It is definitely a play that's going to have some ownership. Obviously, Pascal Siakam, he is out. And if he's out, I don't know what the Pacers are going to do starting-wise. Miles Turner is questionable as well, along with Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nesmith. So these are important pieces that we're waiting on. Looks like the Timberwolves, they are fairly healthy here in this spot, at least healthier than they've been for most of the season. But we got to talk about Obi Toppin. If Miles Turner sits, it's going to be even better for Obi Toppin. Another thing I'm curious about is, does Obi Toppin even start? Could they go Miles Turner and then throw a Jarris Walker at the 4? They do that at times, right?
I think Carlisle's going to do that.
Yeah, I'm not
actually. I don't know. I mean, we've seen a couple things. We've seen Matherin insert in the starting lineup. They could go that route with a Nesmith or have we seen Jarris Walker start? He'll definitely get some run here, but
yeah, I've seen Walker start this year. I don't know the exact scenarios, but I've seen it. Toppin, I think Angel's right. I don't think Toppin has started at all this year.
Yeah.
If so, maybe it was one time. But point being is, I don't know what to do with Obi Toppin, because if he doesn't start, yes, he still has a good roll off the bench. Don't get me wrong, but at 38% ownership with all these late games, I don't know. It's just something to think about. I know he has the ability to break a slate. I know he's a good play, but I just think he's a really interesting talking point, because if you look at the entire slate right now, AP, we sort by ownership. He is the highest owned guy on the slate, and we could have really good value that opens up later on. So I'm not leaning just playing 60% of him. I'm leaning more going even with the field or under on Obi Toppin, and we'll see what ends up happening with the starting lineup. Could a TJ McConnell emerge at 4K? Yeah, of course, depending on what happens with Tyrese and Miles Turner. And then, of course, we should talk about the Minnesota side. We can't ignore them. And Edwards, he was having a monster game yesterday, and then all of a sudden, you know what happened. They were blowing out the Jazz, and he got less run. If this game is competitive at 9.3K, certainly has the ability to break the slate. Dante DiVincenzo at 5.6, he's shown some upside. Julius Randle at 7.7, that's a little bit of a tougher price tag for me. But overall, AP, I think there are some Timberwolves we have to consider, and we got to sift through what we're doing with the Pacers based on the news. But what is your thoughts here overall on this game, AP?
Just to kind of add on to what you were saying and to poke some holes into this Obi Toppin chalk. Now he's 3,600. I guess if he is massively owned and underwhelms, then yeah, he can tank your lineups, especially if there's other players in a similar price range that do significantly better. Obviously, you're going to be struggling there. But just looking at the matchup, if he's not hitting his threes, which he has been taking more threes, which we like to see. Took 6 last game in 22 minutes. Not too bad. But if he's not hitting his threes, this is a tough matchup for him to get to the rim. Rudy Gobert, as much crap as we give him, while he struggled early on in the season, the Wolves have been really good, especially inside. And a lot of that is credit to Rudy Gobert. So it's not going to be the easiest of matchups for him to get to the rim, in my opinion. That's again, 3,600, Obi Toppin. He's a guy that can definitely get going and nuke, but it's going to be something we want to see the starting lineup. And then even if he's starting Mangone, how many times have we seen Rick Carlisle just absolutely just troll us, mess with us, especially with these rotations? He goes deep into his bench. Jarris Walker, maybe Thomas Bryant gets extended run. Maybe they go small with Ben Shepherd. Maybe it's, Benny Matherin. There's just so many ways that Rick Carlisle can go in these situations. What I like to do, or what I have to, Miles Turner has been pretty good when Pascal Siakam is out, gets more shots. Again, tougher matchup, but when Miles Turner has those big games, it's when he's hitting his shots from outside. And I think it's an interesting play. He's coming off a game where he did struggle from 3-point range, 2 of 10. What I'm interested in is the 10 attempts. And he did it in 29 minutes. He had 8 attempts also against the Bucks 2 or 3 games ago. So I think my interest would be in Miles Turner and then Tyrese Halliburton. We've seen combo guards actually have some success against the Timberwolves of late. This game should stay competitive. Tyrese Halliburton's actually playing some really good basketball right now. I think he has to play big minutes. We saw him play 36 against Milwaukee. Now is the time to really start playing some of these guys. Like the Pacers as a team, they got off to such a slow start. We are at such a different point in the season now, and they've actually been a lot more decent. Now, again, I don't follow like records and stuff, but just looking at the standings right now, they had to have made a really nice push. They're sitting 5th, and they've made up a ton of ground kind of chasing down the Bucks. Whereas if you go back a couple months, like I feel like they were like definitely in kind of the play-in tournament standings. So they had to have made a nice run. And I do think they're playing some decent ball right now. So and a lot of that is credited to Tyrese Halliburton. So 8,600, that's going to keep ownership down, and people are going to look at the matchup against the Timberwolves and avoid them. I actually kind of like the matchup for him. So I think Tyrese Halliburton, a really, really nice tournament play tonight.
Yeah, another thing to note, like we need some like news on this game, right? Because if like let's say Miles Turner's in and Halliburton's out, that's going to be a huge boost for who? Like TJ McConnell. And so it's not a finished story yet. We need to get that news. Might not get it when we're on the show. That's the last game at 8:00 Eastern. So 4 games so far. Then we get an hour gap, and it's the Chicago Bulls and the Utah Jazz, which, not an exciting game. I'm sure if you wanted to go to this game for cheap in Utah, I'm sure you could get a cheap ticket. But, man, Josh Giddey, he is doubtful for this game. Not expecting him in. Kobe White, we got him as probable. Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George, Lauri Markkanen, and Svi. They are all questionable. Walker Kessler looks like he is in, but KJ Martin, Colin Sexton, Jaden Springer, they are all out. So the Jazz are not a finished product without this news. I'll say this. If all those Jazz are out, it'll definitely boost up some of the plays, but I don't know which ones, right? Depends who's in and out. If you have Clarkson, Lauri out, I think Keontae George, Isaiah Collier's, the Walker Kesslers, they get a boost, but you could easily make the case that this could be an easier fade spot. The problem is they're playing the Bulls, right? The Bulls are a spot that we like to target. I'm seeing Saberson has a really high ownership on Kevin Huerter at 5.2K. He's got a pretty decent projection, 33% owned. Trey Jones, he's another one. Looks like he's going to be over 20%. Same with Kobe White. He's going to be around 20%. There's plays here that are clearly getting pretty decent boosts without Josh Giddey. And they're playing the Utah Jazz, right? It's a really easy matchup. So these plays can't get completely ignored, AP, but I'll tell you this. If I'm playing my DFS teams, at least this game is a little bit later, right? This game is at 9:00 Eastern. The other games are all at 10 o'clock. I'll probably get a lot of news by then that'll help make me decide, can I pivot on or off some of these plays? Curious to get your take on how you're handling this Jazz and Bulls matchup.
The Bulls have been a really interesting team. They were on a 4-game win streak, and they've been pretty bad all season.
They're
long.
also in the playoffs, AP. For what it's worth.
They're in that like 9th or 10th seed. Like they're on the edge of it, but they have a nice lead over the Raptors, who are also in tank mode. So they are motivated to at least try to do something. And you've seen it. Like they took the Rockets. That game was close, and that was in Houston. They were in it all the way down the stretch, and now they get a matchup against the Jazz, which. I got this metric I use. It's just really simple, but it's looking at a team versus net defense over the last couple of weeks, and this grades out as a team standpoint. And we're focusing on fantasy points. So teams that allow the most fantasy points, the Jazz are right up there. They're the second best matchup on the slate, with the Spurs being the best matchup. And so what that means is, yes, we should want to consider some of these Bulls players tonight. Especially too with the key injuries and the key guys that are going to be out. Josh Giddey, like you said, I had the wrong tab. Kobe White projected in But yeah, Josh Giddey being out obviously is gonna free up a lot. I really like the role that Trey Jones has right now. Like you can make the case, like Trey Jones, he's gonna play 34 minutes, really good matchup. If you're looking at like his recent production, you have to keep in mind the matchups that he was facing. A matchup against Orlando, Miami, Indiana. All three teams play really good defense. Houston, up there, one of the best defensive teams. Brooklyn, the Nets at times they played really good defense, and then at other times they haven't. He smashed in that game. Now you get so that's been the last 5 games, and he's put up very, very respectable fantasy scores. And now you're giving me the Jazz. Like I think he is a phenomenal play, even at the $5,900 price tag. I think Kobe White. The thing that Kobe White has is if his shot's not off, he could have a floor performance, and that could hurt you at his elevated price tag. But just look at what he's doing during this stretch too. He's averaging like 22, 23 field goal attempts. I mean, he's going to shoot the ball 25 times tonight in this matchup. So you're giving me a guy that now has the job of not only scoring a ton, but being a distributor, having the ability to rack up other peripheral stats. I mean, Kobe White, a smash play, and then Kevin Huerter too. It's a great matchup for guys, for raw shooters. But I still like Trey Jones and Kobe White a little bit more than Kevin Huerter, especially if Kevin Huerter is going to be chalk. I don't necessarily trust the rotation that I'm seeing with him, Vaselis. You got Pat Williams that's getting more run off the bench. You also have Zach Collins that's played, had some really nice roles too. Vucevic is the other guy that I do have interest in. So I think we're going to see him play over 30 minutes tonight. We saw him get up to 29 against Houston. I think it's a spot where maybe he gets 31, 32 minutes. And I'm not showing a ton of ownership, but the price tags come down. The matchup's phenomenal. I think he's an interesting tournament play at 7,300. And maybe I'm wrong with the ownership. Do you have ownership up? Is he projecting to get some?
Herder definitely is. He's projected.
Yeah, and he's the guy I could poke some holes in, especially as chalk. But like Trey Jones, Kobe White, and Vucevic are the three that I actually like a little bit more than Kevin Huerter.
Yeah, so Trey Jones around 24, Kobe around 20, and then Nikolai Vucevic around 12. Obviously, that hinges on how some of the news hits, throughout the day. But if we don't get a lot of value coming our way, right, and these guys are all ruled in early, I think some of those ownerships stick. And then, these later games are going to be lower owned, right? And I'm kind of waiting on that news. I'm not saying I'm fully backloading and just only playing the late games, but I do think there's a lot of value in that. If I was thinking of these plays, I think Kobe White's number 1 for me, Trey Jones 2, and then Vucevic 3. I'm with you. I just don't want to be on a chalkier Kevin Huerter. So I think we kind of agree on that. I don't love Vucevic, though. I think you like him a little bit more than me. Like, do you like him at the 7.3K tag, AP?
Well, I think he's interesting. I could see him I could definitely see him get there. I'm not going to prioritize him, if that makes sense. Like, he's not going to be a guy where it's just like, I have to make sure I get him into my lineups, and then kind of build around him, where Trey Jones and Kobe White could fall into that category for me. But I also think like Pat Williams, he could be a pivot off of like Obi Toppin, for example. Now, again, not a guy that's too exciting, but the matchup is really nice. I think the more I think about it, like Kobe White might be my favorite play, followed by Trey Jones. And then Kevin Huerter and Vucevic fall in line after that.
All right, let's get to the next game to discuss, and it's the Nuggets and it's the Warriors. I think it's definitely one of the bigger games here because we have news, and Jokic, Murray, Aaron Gordon are all questionable. It looks like Christian Brown, he is going to be in for this game. The other key one on the opposite side is Steph Curry. He's got the questionable tag, and this game's at least in Golden State, right? So that helps a little bit. If this game was in Denver, I'd be a little more concerned about the Curry stuff. I'm assuming he plays. Podziemski, he is out, right? Post is also questionable, but I mean, this this Golden State team is playing really good basketball. I believe they're 14-1 since the Jimmy Butler trade. This is a good barometer game to see how they are. I'm assuming these guys are going to be healthy for this game. We'll see what they do with Jokic and everyone. But if Jokic misses, or even a Jamal Murray misses, that's going to be a huge boost, right? It's going to help a Michael Porter Jr. if a Murray misses. It's going to help who else? It's going to help, I think, a Christian Brown. He'd get a boost. So Jokic would get a massive boost, even though he's $13K, which is being talked about a little bit in the chat. The price tag on Jokic. Well, I think we'll have the value for it. And if Jokic gets ruled out, it's going to help a lot of front court guys, right? It's going to be valuable with Zeke Nananji and Peyton Watson. So, AB, I mean, I'm assuming someone misses. I don't know who it is. I don't think they all just become probable. I mean, if an Aaron Gordon misses, that's going to boost it for someone like Westbrook, who had a huge game the other day, and I was all over. So I'm trying to backload for this spot. I think there's opportunity here. How are you kind of handling the Nuggets and the Golden State Warriors?
Yeah, it seems like a spot where they all play. I mean, is this one of the featured games tonight? I haven't seen like what's on like ESPN or.
Yeah, I can look real quick. I mean,
chat could look too while I talk through this game. But
yeah, I'm pulling it up. I mean, it's easy to pull up. So yeah, this is an ESPN game, so it's on ESPN.
So yeah, with that in mind, and just the West is loaded, I lean towards everyone playing. Very important game, especially like Steph Curry. He's going to play, and I can't see Jokic missing. Aaron Gordon maybe, but I think he would play as well. Hopefully Steve Kerr was watching how JJ Redick had the Lakers playing Jokic. I mean, it was really impressive. They had someone limiting his touches like at half court. Usually you see that with like your primary ball handlers, but you usually consider those like guards, like trying to keep the ball out of SGA's hand so he can't facilitate. They were doing that with Jokic. The other thing that they were doing is they constantly had a body banging on him. Now, racked up a lot of fouls. He had a lot of free throw attempts in that game, but it worked. It got to him. He got frustrated. And I was also frustrated because I locked him on that slate. I think it was a night slate. And I had everything else nailed perfectly because I ran a script where the Lakers kept the game close. And I went all in on that game. And it was perfect. But Jokic was the guy that let me down somehow. So, and it was the small ball lineups that he actually struggled against. And they were just throwing dudes at Jokic. So I think the Warriors could do something similar, especially with Draymond Green. And then it's the price tag, $13K. Now, again, if we get some really cheap value, like flat $3K, that's just you can't fade it type of value, then Jokic makes sense. But as it stands right now, I'm not necessarily seeing that. And paying the price tag for him is really tough. So I'm leaving him in the pool right now. But really, like as far as spend up goes, for me, it's probably Luka or Cade Cunningham. I don't know if I can get to a 13K Nikola Jokic, and especially if everyone's healthy. But again, Jokic is a guy that, I mean, he could go for 80, 90. Obviously, like if you're running a bunch of lineups, you keep him in your pool because he's someone that could absolutely nuke and be like a must-have on the slate. I'm not seeing it right now for me. I would rather play Luka in what should be a really nice matchup against the Spurs if I'm spending up.
Yeah, and another thing to mention too is, I mean, Curry at 9.1K against the Denver a team that's not playing defense. I actually think there's a good ceiling opportunity for him. So I think he's a good spend that people, won't really be on. I'm showing him at like 8%. So I'm interested in Curry a little bit. And then Draymond Green, we talked about him, a couple shows ago or so, AP, 5.9K now, and he's going to be needed against Jokic. And here's another thing to call out. He's power forward eligible now. He's not just center eligible, nice. AP. They were listening. So I like Draymond a lot at that price. I know he's got 28% ownership. I think he's actually a really good play. I like his ceiling in this spot. He's going to play a pile of minutes as long as Curry's in. And I'm assuming Curry's going to be in. So I think he is a good play as well in this spot. Let's get to the next game, Memphis and Sacramento. Definitely a game that has some injury stuff that we have to
Hey, real quick, man, going.
Yeah.
Without looking, what do you think the Warriors' record is over their last 10 games? Maybe you saw.
Well, I know they're 14-1 since Butler's been there.
Okay, so yeah, 14. Yeah, that's insane. Absolutely insane. Not 9-1. I mean, the 14-1. I didn't know that stat. But,
who was their loss? Do you have it in front of you?
I don't. Chat can help us out.
I just pulled it up. Their loss was the Sixers, which is random. I will call this out. They haven't really beat anyone over this stretch besides
everyone is playing in this game. Look at the West. Look at the standings. Before LeBron was out, the Lakers were second in the West. Now they're fifth. I think everyone plays in this game. Like they have to. It's just so you don't want to fall in the play-in tournament. You want to fight for that 2 seed.
Jokic talked about how he's basically playing. Like there was a press conference with him, so I assume he plays. Murray's the weird one, just because I know he rolled his ankle last game, and he came back in, but I don't know. I could see him sitting. They also play the Lakers on Wednesday on ESPN, so I don't know. We'll see what they decide to do. I mean, it wouldn't shock me what they do, but I do want to mention who they played, though. The Warriors, the only playoff teams they played, and by playoff teams, I mean teams that are not in the play-in game, right? So teams that are locked in. They beat Houston, and they beat the Knicks twice. So those are I guess the Pistons. So not terrible, but, they haven't played like the upper echelon teams really. So I'm curious to see how they do against the Nuggets tonight. I think this is a fun game. I'm excited. I think it's a good barometer game for the Warriors. So I'm hoping Nuggets play their guys. If they don't play their guys, hey, I'll be happy DFS-wise, and I'll be swapping around, and I'll be jamming in some of these guys. But let's get to Memphis and Sacramento. Definitely a game worth talking about because we are missing guys, right? Ja Morant, he is out for this game. The Kings side, they're a lot more healthier, right? They got Sabonis back, Trey Lyles. I did mention Memphis, they're missing Ja Morant, but they got questionable guys as well. Scottie Pippen, questionable. Santi Aldama, doubtful. I'm assuming Aldama misses. If a Scottie Pippen misses, this would open up the door for who, AP? Luke Kennard, right? Luke Kennard at his 4.5K price tag. If there's no Scottie Pippen, I mean, he's going to be the point guard running the show, of course, right? He'll obviously have to be someone that we are interested in. Desmond Bane at 9K. Feels expensive, but you can make the case that he still has upside at the price. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 8.4. He's got upside at that price that I think is worth looking at if a Scottie Pippen misses. And if a Scottie Pippen's in at 4.7, we saw him play great without Ja Morant. So Memphis has opportunity here that we should not ignore. We do have Vince Williams Jr. back. I think that's another notable guy to mention at 3.9K that can muddy up some situations. And if a Scottie Pippen misses, maybe that opens up the door for a 3.9K Vince Williams Jr. Again, we don't have all the news here, AP, but with no Ja Morant, I don't think we can ignore Memphis. What's your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on this game are, obviously the Mavs are the team that, the moves that they made are just laughable now, but you can put the Kings up there too. You look at this, you got Monk, who's been awesome, or who has in the past been awesome. Levine, you trade for him. You got DeRozan. You just have all of these dudes that, all of these mid-range guys. And we all know that that's just not the way to be an elite team in the NBA or in today's NBA. Maybe in the 90s it would have worked, but it's clearly not working right now. I know the West, obviously a little bit more loaded, but still, it's just crazy. So the Kings side is easy for me. They're always massively overpriced. I never understand. It's like, man, we're watching the NBA every day. We're doing content for it every single day, which, you're reviewing, you're monitoring these price tags. And I pull it up. I'm like 8,700 for Zach LaVine, 8,400 for DeMar DeRozan. I pull LaVine up. LaVine has over the last 10 games, his top score is 48. If he puts up 48 tonight, at 8,700, I don't know. He's not beating me. He's not beating me at all.
And part of the reason was Sabonis, right? He was out, right? And with Sabonis back, that's made the situation too difficult to roster, where it's a great spot for us just to, I think, stay away from the Kings side of the ball. So all your points are pretty well taken.
And I think it's a tough matchup for Sabonis. You got Edey, you got Jaren Jackson. The Grizzlies can play tough on the inside. I do think it's a spot, though. The Kings have actually randomly, even though their record isn't good, especially over the last couple of weeks, they've been good at limiting fantasy points and opportunity. What would make this situation much different, though, is if Scottie Pippen got ruled out, Luke Kennard would have to play all the minutes that he could handle. I think it's a great bounce back spot for him. He started last game. I ended up locking him, and he was 15% owned to Scottie Pippen, who was giga chalk. And and came off the bench. And Luke Kennard just couldn't get going. It was very, very frustrating to watch. I mean, usually he's been awesome in these spots. He's been awesome at racking up peripheral stats, assists, rebounds, and he's obviously a good shooter too. And again, a lot of those were against easier matchups like the Jazz, Atlanta, the Spurs. But again, the role is going to be nice. So this is obviously key news. If Pippen also got ruled out, I think Bane would be a nice option. So, like, here's the difference. So you have 8,700 Zach LaVine versus a 9K Bane. Bane has shown plenty of upside. Over the last 10 games, he's hit 66 points twice. He's had 250 pieces, and he's just had like four down games during that span. But again, with Ja out, we elevate his production. We also elevate Jaren Jackson. So for me, it's Luke Kennard, Scottie Pippen, and then Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson would be the key guys that I would be taking a look at in this matchup against the Kings.
Yeah, it's definitely a spot where I think the Memphis side is interesting, but we kind of need the news for it. And this is why, again, I think backloading a little bit is not a bad idea on this slate.
Actually, like Jaren Jackson, the more I think about it and when I look at this matchup, I think the Kings are going to – I think they're going to struggle against him a little bit. If he stays out of foul trouble, I think Jaren Jackson could have a nice game here.
Yeah, I'm on board with the Jaren Jackson stuff at his price at 8.4K. Like, there's a ceiling there, right? If he gets you at 59 DK points, which he can, right, with the stock upside, I do think he is a good play. He's got to keep his hands to himself, right? We know the Jaren Jackson experience, but he's done a little bit better of that over, the past couple of years, or probably past year or so. I don't want to give him too much credit, but 31 points, I know, and 8 rebounds the other night. He definitely can show the upside. Let's get to Toronto and Phoenix, which is a tough game to figure out completely, but we are missing Grayson Allen and Bradley Beal. Those are obviously big pieces of news that are missing on the Phoenix side of the ball. When Bradley Beal's been out, it's definitely been some really good opportunity for who? AP? Well, Tyus Jones at 4.3K has been someone that's been pretty good. He's showing 20% ownership. I know Kevin Durant's expensive at 9.7, but I mean, he might play. This might be a night where he plays 42 minutes. He's shown to do that if the game is close. But will the Toronto Raptors keep it close? That's the question. We never know with them. They are tanking. They have injury news too. RJ Barrett, Grady Dick, Jakob Poeltl, and Jared Rhoden, they are all out. Guys that are in are Akbaji, Barnes, and Emmanuel quickly. Listen, I don't want to touch the Toronto Raptors right now. Even Orlando Robinson, who's showing ownership. I mean, he's 5K now. I want to try to stay away from this team for the most part, as much as I can. It's just a really shady spot with the Toronto Raptors. So, sure, maybe if I get an Orlando Robinson, it's not the worst player, or Colin Castleton, who might get a little bit of run, but I'm worried about playing the Raptors. I do like the Phoenix side a little bit. I always love when Bradley Beal's out and Tyus Jones starts. So if he is starting, I think he's in play. I think Nick Richards has some upside at 4.4K that can't be completely ignored. And then, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Prices are expensive at 9.2 and 9.7, but I think they're studs that are in play because when Bradley Beal has been out, we've seen these guys go 40-plus minutes, and they've been needed. So I do like those guys a lot. AP, what's your thoughts, though, on this Phoenix Suns and Toronto Raptors game?
My thoughts on the Suns are they're a complete disaster. At this point of the season, usually when you're a team like they are, where you have 3 All-Stars, or I guess 2 All-Stars and a guy that somehow continues to get like one of the highest contracts ever. He's not going to at his next location, but and that's Bradley Beal that I'm talking about. But usually you have your rotation and things kind of figured out. Not the case at all. Like Ryan Dunn, not even playing a couple of weeks ago to now starting and looking pretty good. He's obviously a good defensive player. I couldn't believe like why they weren't playing him more early on. Again, played him last 2 games, and they beat the Kings and then lost to the Lakers yesterday. But you have to think that continues. So it's like who starts for Bradley Beal? It's like they hate Tyus Jones. I know Tyus Jones is popping right now. I'm only playing him if he starts. If he doesn't start, I don't think you can play him. If he starts, he's had a nice role. a few of those games, though, yeah, I think he started for Beal, but I think someone else, a couple other pieces were out too. So this is where, when you look at the early games, and we talked through a few of them really quickly, and it's like, fade, not a lot of interest, fade. There is a case to be made to just fade the first two slates. So that's the 7:30 and 8 Eastern games. You probably want pieces from the Chicago-Utah game. We highlighted Kobe White, very strong play, Trey Jones, etc. You don't necessarily need a Utah piece. The Jazz are pretty gross, and rarely ever are you like disappointed for not rostering a Jazz player. But if you just do that, and then you wait for this news, Scottie Pippen, we talked about how important that is. Understanding what this starting lineup is going to be. We have the news for the Suns, but we don't have their starting lineup yet. That's really important. Like, we want to make sure Ryan Dunn stays in the starting lineup. We want to know who's going to start for Bradley Beal. They're starting Bol for a while. Like, this Suns team is an absolute disaster. They have nothing figured out. Absolutely nothing. And the problem for them tonight is the Raptors have actually been playing pretty tough basketball. Like, they don't want to win right now. You shouldn't want to win. But rostering players against them hasn't been the best thing to do. They've been playing really good defense. I mean, if you pull it up, they've what? Hold on. I had it up. They've won, what is it, 6 of the last 10 games off the top of my head. They're 6-4 last 10. So they're actually playing decent basketball. I don't think they're going to chase down the Bulls for that 10 seed, and you would think that they would want to just lose, but that hasn't been the case of late. So I think this is maybe a sneaky not upset, but if I was betting this game, I would actually lean the Toronto side, just with how big of a disaster the Suns have been.
Yeah, I'll say this: if Toronto's up, AP, bet the Suns in the fourth quarter. They'll find a way to tank it. That's another thing.
So a question for you, Ryan Dunn, is he? So when we look at, so I've been trying to make note of, okay, Obi Toppin, we know is getting a lot of ownership, and that game starts way early, and so I think that will be telling. If you fade him, you'll get a good idea of what his ownership is. We've already highlighted a few plays in that same price range that could compete with him production wise. Ryan Dunn would be that as well. He's 3,800 on DraftKings. I don't know if he's showing a lot of ownership or not.
No, around 10%. My favorite two, I think, are Tyus and Nick Richard, just because I do think Toronto wants to play with their bigs, right? They're not going to go super small. They're going to play those big men. So Nick Richards is definitely pop time. So for me, it's Tyus and Nick Richards. Ryan Dunn, maybe I'll get there by the time we get to 10 o'clock AP. I'm just not there yet, but I get it, right? You want to get these lower-owned guys. You want to take advantage of that and then kind of use it later on for your advantage while people are locked into higher-owned plays. So I totally understand what you're doing there. Let's get to Washington. And
one real quick note. It's really tough to play guys like Quickly and Scotty Barnes right now. Yeah. While Toronto's been competitive, they're really limiting their stars minutes. But Orlando Robinson, he's been awesome. He's shown so much upside. He struggled against Portland, but Portland's another team that's been pretty competitive. Orlando Robinson against kind of this disastrous Suns team, I think, is a really interesting play. And then they're another team that could shake up the starting lineup too. We've seen AJ Lawson have big games. He has 30-minute upside, or 30-minute playing upside. We've seen that in 4 of his last 5 games, even when he comes off the bench. He put up 28 fantasy points against Portland off the bench, I believe, and he couldn't hit a shot. He couldn't hit a shot to save his life. I think AJ Lawson at 4,900 is in play against the Suns tonight. So I don't think he'll be owned at all. I don't see how he could, but some of these plays I think are really interesting for the Raptors.
Yeah, definitely don't think you're completely wrong. And again, the starting lineups will definitely be beneficial. Let's get to the next game. Washington and Portland, clearly a game where no defense will be played, right? A lot of fantasy goodness. I definitely am interested in this game. I'm interested in the news, though. Tamani Kamara, I think that's a pretty big piece of news that's not noted yet, but he's questionable. Jeremy Grant, doubtful. We got Walker out, Robert Williams. Corey Kispert's out as well, which helps some of those wing players on the Washington Wizards. And of course, Marcus Smart, he's still questionable. So, and he sat the other night, definitely helped some of those like wing guys. It's not a lot of minutes, but it's not nothing. For me, AP, I mean, I like Denny Avdia even at 7.1K. It's a revenge game. If you like that kind of thing, it's definitely a good spot for him. Justin Champagnie, he was definitely a play that I had a lot of the other day, had a pretty big game. Donovan Clingan, 5.8K. I've been saying how Clingan, I think he's got upside and he struggled a little bit, but I think with the injuries they're dealing with now in the matchup, this is a great spot for someone like Clingan to have a pretty big game. I know everyone wants to make Scoot Henderson happen. I think there is upside in this matchup, but I'm not dying to get there. Another guy that I think is interesting is Alexander Sarr. I mean, Sarr had a huge game against Jokic the other day, and I could easily see him do well in this matchup as a mid-tier option at 6.5K, especially if they want to keep giving him the minutes, right? And it seems like that's what they're doing with him. So I'm all around interested in this game and a lot of these mid-tier plays. I think they've got to be in play. You can make the case, too, for other options like an Anthony Simons and Keyshawn George, but I like some of these other guys like Champagnie, Denny Avdia, Clingan. Those are some of the specific guys I'm looking at. Who are some of the ones that you are looking at, AP?
So this is interesting, too, because the Wizards, I mean, you're coming off wins over the Pistons, who have been awesome, and then Jordan Poole calling game against the Nuggets with a ridiculous shot. I was rooting for OT in that game, needed OT, did not get it. In this game, like I thought, like, one, Denver hasn't been that good defensively. Take it with a grain of salt because Aaron Gordon was out. It was a second end of a back-to-back. Obviously, they played the Lakers in a close one without Luka the night before, and then followed up against the Wizards. And the Wizards, they were actually like in attendance watching that game. The announcers called it. I thought that was interesting. I don't know how often that happens in the NBA, but I thought that was interesting. So they had front row seats to watch the Lakers play them, and then they played them the next night. And you saw what was interesting about the Wizards, they're letting their young guys cook. And shout out to our guy, Kevin Fallon. I think he called this out maybe a couple weeks ago. It was Keyshawn George being a guy that's just playable. If you look at the rotation now, I'm using a one-game sample because that's what I have up in front of me. But it's something that I've noticed. They're younger guys getting more run. Keyshawn George being one of them. Justin Champagnie also being one of them. While they're managing the Jordan Pooles, definitely Chris Middleton, not a guy only played 20 minutes last game. Like, they let the young guys go into Denver and beat the former two-year remove world champs and Nikola Jokic. Obviously, Aaron Gordon out for that game changes up the dynamic for the Nuggets significantly, of course, but still, what an impressive win. So you're talking back-to-back wins over the Pistons, over the Nuggets. I don't know. I mean, the Wizards are playing like, and then you get Portland also playing really good. I think I would almost back the Wizards. I say that, and then they'll probably be an absolute disaster. But I think this game will be somewhat interesting tonight. If we get similar rotations. The other thing, too, Alexander Sarr, if Rashawn Holmes is back, which I believe he is, that could cut into Alexander Sarr's minutes just a little bit. But again, I think if you're trying to develop your young guys, you'd want to play Sarr over 30 minutes. So I like that mention from you. But I don't know how we don't consider like a Justin Champagnie, Keyshawn George. Fade the older guys, play some of the younger guys. Like, I don't even think I would consider Corey Kisper's out. So, like, Corey Kispert being out, they didn't play Anthony Heel. They didn't play Tristan Vucevic. Like, those guys are falling out of the rotation, which they should. You got to think that Champagnie, Keyshawn George are two really strong plays if you think this game stays close, if we see a similar rotation. So that's kind of where I would land. Tougher to get to Jordan Poole on the loaded slate tonight. Can he get there in minimal time? He can. I just don't know if I would want to really take the risk because price tag is still somewhat elevated. And then on the Portland side, this is still a great matchup against the Wizards. And the thing to highlight here is Denny Avdia in his first #revenge game, the game that was in Washington. He got hurt like 3 minutes into the game. It was brutal. A knee injury. He was out the rest of the game. And it was Shaedon Sharpe who just nuked at like no ownership. He was like in the 4Ks. I remember it because I had a lineup that I was considering playing him, because what was happening with the Blazers is you would see one of Scoot Henderson or Shaden Sharp go off, and they were coming off the bench. It was like this trend. It was like one of them would go off and the other would be dust. Well, Scoot was dust that game, and Shaden Sharp nuked. Like, he absolutely nuked. And it was after that game that he has now stayed in the starting lineup ever since then. So if you go back, and I'm pretty sure my memory's right with that one. And the thing about Tamuni Kamara, low usage guy, so not a guy that offensively is that you can rely on, but he's just so good at racking up peripheral stats. And so he's a guy you definitely want to consider. I do like this rotation. You're seeing a tighter rotation for the core starters, with Scoot Henderson being the main guy off the bench. Chris Murray and Duop Reef, they'll get minutes from time to time, but really you get a nice tight rotation on the Blazers side. And again, it's going to be a great matchup for a guy like Shaden Sharp, Denny Avdia, Donovan Clingan, I think, is in play too. But you kind of have to roll the dice, and it's still a 3-max situation. But I see many situations where we see multiple Portland players get there. And again, like, man, the more we talk through this, I'm really considering just like fading the first 4 games, take a few pieces from Bulls, Jazz. We wait for this other news. In worst case, we're just playing, I can target this game. I like if Tumani Kamara sits too, like he's questionable, that would just elevate this game even more. Marcus Smart, if he does, it would tighten up the rotations. 232 total. Yeah, this is going to be a game that I'm going to be targeting fantasy-wise.
Yeah, and Marcus Smart sat pretty late last game, like it was out of nowhere. And, I mean, I think there's a lot of value in this game. I'm with you, AP. And, again, just build a team without any of, like, the first, like, just build only a night slate team and see what it looks like. I'm sure it's still good. I want to be backloaded more tonight. I want to be able to have opportunities. I want to see what news is going to come our way. And I do think it's going to open up opportunity. And if you do miss those guys on the wing, right, like a Corey Kispert that's out on the wing, that is going to open up more opportunity here that I think people are just ignoring. And Chapenny's a really good play, so I'm in on him. Let's get to the last and final game on the slate. We still don't have some of this news that we've been waiting on, right? And, it'll –
And there you go, real quick. What do you think – all right, so now this is misleading, but Denny only played 5 minutes against the Wizards, so take this with a grain of salt. What do you think his usage rate was in those first 5 minutes of the game?
He was like nuking. It was probably like 40%.
He wasn't nuking, but he was attempting to nuke. It was 51%. Yeah. 50.6. Like, he was forcing everything. Now, again, I don't think that's the right approach, but he looked highly motivated. He's going to be chalked tonight, or should be chalked. But I love his role. 7,100, I think, is a phenomenal play.
Yeah, I'm loading up on Denny. So I'm already convinced. So
Ryan M., I said, like, 2 years removed champs. Yeah. And they still have their core team, like, intact from that. Now there's, like a few pieces gone, but they still have their KPJ and Aaron Gordon, Jokic, and Murray. I'm going to call them the two-time removed champs.
I'll tell you this. It was an impressive win. I watched the final 5 minutes, and it was impressive. Like, even Jamal Murray, he hit his patented, like jumper with, like, the screen with Jokic. And then, you know what Jordan Poole did? He walked down court and he hit a three-pointer. That was a deep three that Westbrook kind of gave him and then tried to cover. And then there was the second left. You know what Jordan Poole did? He celebrated and didn't even cover anymore.
Yeah, it was so funny.
It was – and honestly, it was the Keyshawn George shot that he made in the corner was great. It was a defensive mistake by Porter Jr. I mean, it was an impressive win. So I'm with you, AP. All right, last game of the slate. We know we got to like the Lakers a little bit. They are playing the San Antonio Spurs, who we know have been banged up a bit. Ownership in this game, I'm seeing Stephen Castle at 6.6K, around 13%, and then Luka, 23% owned. Luka's probably the best stud on this slate. I like him a lot. I know Austin Reeves at 8.9. It looks expensive, AP, but honestly, I'm still kind of interested in at the 8.9K price tag. I think he's actually a really good play here. If you think the Lakers do go smaller, Jeremy Sochan could be interesting at 5.1. Devin Vassell's shown some upside. He's 6.9K, though. The price is getting up there. Curious to get your thoughts on this game. I don't want to go too crazy with it. I think there's good plays in this game, but it's not like, a game of the night is kind of my overall thought process, though. Luka's probably my favorite play in this game, though. What about you?
Yeah, the thing about, like, defense in the NBA, it's such a team thing. You need And that's why you saw initially like the defense for the Lakers drop off big time with LeBron out. LeBron, obviously a good communicator out there, getting his guys in the right spots, making sure everyone's talking. That's like a huge component to defense. What I'm getting at is the Spurs right now are just – they're obviously running a super random, wild rotation and a bunch of dudes that don't have a lot of chemistry playing with each other. And you can kind of, if you're an opposing team, pick that apart a little bit. And that's what we're seeing. You're seeing monster scores like LaMelo Ball with how bad he's been. He's put up a 58 piece. We saw CJ McCollum, 51. Like we've seen guys just absolutely go off and nuke against the Spurs team. I'm with you. Luka, best spin on the slate. This is a must-win game for the Lakers. And the thing about the Lakers right now, outside of yesterday, I was watching golf yesterday. I didn't, and I had a few other things going on. I wasn't able to watch the Lakers Suns game really closely. It seems like they played better defensively. I don't know if it was just the Suns being a disaster and doing what the Suns do of late, but they did seem a little bit better. But prior to that, they were getting absolutely abused, and they were just having to rely on pure offense to stay in these games. You saw it against the Bucks. We saw it against the Nuggets. The Nuggets in that one, obviously Luka was out, which I thought would have made the Lakers a little bit better defensively because you see teams just absolutely pick on Luka. So I think this game it's a must-win game for the Lakers. I don't think that they blow the Spurs out second end of the back-to-back. I think it stays close. And with that in mind, really nice spot for the exciting whites, Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic. And yeah, shout out to Kay Fallick. We were in the Discord, and I was on Donovan Mitchell, and I know a member was asking questions. Kay Fallick was on Austin Reeves, and Donovan Mitchell had the opportunity. It was Austin Reeves that outperformed him, and so yeah, I don't think 8,900 is too expensive. Look at he's playing 39 minutes. He's got even with Luke out there. He took 21 shots, and the usage rate was still nice. Now Luka just got ruled probable not long ago when we started the show. But if for some reason like he didn't play, you'd want that spot open for Reeves. He'd be an absolute lock. Like we saw what he did against Denver. Like he would absolutely carve the Spurs team up. So Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, really strong plays. And I think you can consider Jackson Hayes. So Trey Jimison is out. Who is the other? They're not going to play Alex Lynn. I mean, he's horrendous. I guess he got 11 minutes against. Yeah, he didn't play in this last game. I don't know if he was a DNP or not, but he's terrible. He's so bad. So Jackson Hayes, probably an unknown big that I think is a good play as well.
Yeah, definitely think that's a good game that we need to target. I'm with you. So, all right, that's 10 games. We talked about it. We don't have any news on the Zion stuff or anything like that. I think part of the reason why, and I think we're going to get it we might get it in 5 minutes, but we might not. So that's one of the problems. I'm not saying we're going to stall to stay on air, but we'll see. If we get the news, we'll stay on and discuss it. If not, we'll get on out of here. We'll get the Discord chat, right? We'll talk about it there. If you want to sign up for Run Pure Sports and hang out with us there, use that code STEVE15, get you 15% off. And of course, we got March Madness content for you all week long. We'll have bracket breakdown, so DFS stuff. So if you need that,
hey, just to stall a little bit longer, not like I want to, but I do think Stephen Castle and Devin Vassell are in play. I know the Spurs are tough to trust, but they are giving their young guys decent minutes. And then I also like Jeremy Shohan a little bit as well. You're kind of seeing, and then, I mean, Champagny had a nice role too, but I think I like the other Champagny that we discussed earlier. But yeah, Shohan, Keldon Johnson, Stephen Castle, Vassell. So like Mangone, we just went through, so it's a 10-game slate. I have like six games, maybe 7 that I just want to cross off. And then I have, 3 or 4 that I have a ton of interest in, and the Spurs Lakers being one of them. So my night is probably going to be, and it probably lines up perfectly with my night. I do got to run and get my kids, but it's at the first lock. It's not the later lock. They're going to all be in bed and asleep, and I'll be able to map out, adjust to news, and maybe pour myself a cocktail. I'll be sitting pretty headed into the night slates, not wasting any roster spots on these earlier games.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going to be definitely a little more backloaded for sure. Obviously, if news hits, we'll adjust the playbook. We'll adjust our content and mention it in the Discord chat while we answer all your guys' questions. I'm with you. I want to load up on this later game. All right, AP, let's get the plays of the day. Who do you got? Who's your play of the day today?
That's a great question. Haven't really. It's going to be one of these guys in the later window. I mean, I guess I could say Luka Doncic and be safe. If we're talking are studs allowed? That's probably too obvious, right?
I am going to give a little bit of a chalkier guy with mine, so I'm okay with that. I mean, all
right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with so I love this matchup for Devin Vassell. We've seen some of these spots where he's just chucked, and I'm going to say don't prioritize Kevin Huerter 5,200. I know the price is a little bit different here, but find a way to get up to a Devin Vassell or a Stephen Castle. One of those guys is going to nuke. I think the Spurs play the Lakers kind of tight. I think it's going to be a good late night hammer game. And Devin Vassell having a big game against the Lakers that they are giving up. You got Reeves, you got Luka. They're going to give up some shots here, I think, to the Spurs.
All right, I'm going to a little bit of a chalkier guy, but I'm okay with it. I'm taking my 50 piece with Denny Avdia. I'm just taking it. I'm moving on. I think he's going to be one of the best plays of the slate. I felt that way with Westbrook the other day. I feel that way with Denny. So I'm going to go pretty overweight on him at the forward position, which honestly, if you look at forward AP, for a 10-game slate, and I mean, I say this every slate, forward's not great. It's not great today. Sure, the Obi Toppin stuff, everyone likes that, but he could even be off the bench. So I'm with the AP. We both like Denny, it sounds like, and I like your call with targeting some of the Spurs there. But, I don't think we got the news, and I can't promise we're going to get the news, so I can't just sit here and stall forever. We'll be in the Discord chat. Obviously, as we get news, we'll break it down in there. We'll let the people know what we're doing. If you want to sign up, again, you can use that code STEVE15 for 15% off. And, of course, you can check out all the March Madness content we have and, of course, all the PGA content as well, AP. I know you had a little nice PGA week. Not as good as Uncle T, who won $10,000. If you're watching Uncle T, I'm sure you're not. But it was a good week overall for us. I know Bryce had a pretty good week, but are you excited for the Valspar this week, AP?
Yeah, I am. I broke even this week. I've had a much better last 2 weeks of NBA. Have been treated me really nice. Close to like really, really, really nice. But I know it's tilting. We all hate it, but I do feel like we're really dialed. And the people that are following it really closely, we've been close. And I see you members in there too. You've had some nice wins. So let's stay dialed. Let's stay focused. And tonight's a great night to do that. I love this isolated night slate, 5 games. The contests look good. They might be filling up pretty quickly. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I had a top 20 on the weekend, and then I won 188 tickets. So I got one of those. So that'll be fun to play, I think, on Wednesday. So, but that will wrap it up for us on the show. Thanks a lot for joining us. Get in the Discord chat, come hang out with us. But for me, Mangone and AP, we'll see you guys later.